So officially, Nick, thanks so much for sponsoring the event. Thanks so much for sharing some great content with us this morning. Please take it away.
Excellent. Thanks, Ted. All right. Make sure I'm on track. So we've got 15 minutes today. We're going to talk about the who, the what, the how, and the why of Saltmine. So it's a lot to cover in 15 minutes. We're going to try to get through as much as we possibly can. Let me make sure I've got the right deck up. I do. I'm going to start with who is Saltmine. You know, when I joined 2.5 years ago, I always tell the story that my wife thought I was crazy for leaving JLL to join a startup, which was a startup in every sense of the imagination. We were 3 people. Fast forward 2.5 years, we're actually now 105 people across the globe. Brick-and-mortar offices in 5 cities in 4 countries. Actively approaching 50 SaaS customers, and those SaaS customers are the big global 2000s, many of which are probably on today's call. And then we have a very deep industry expertise. So a lot of us have grown up and been seasoned with really some of the top associations in the industry. So JLL, Gensler, Prince & Will, WeWork. So we've got a really strong US-based team. That's the who we are at Saltmine. Now the what is Saltmine. Saltmine is at its core a workplace management platform. So we're a platform that is geared to how to share, to report on workplace data with the specific focus around the design process. And every customer has their own design cloud, Ted. So whether you're ABC Co. or Acme Tech, it's based on your ratios. It is your products, your space dimensions, your IT, your AV, your branding, your lighting, anything like that I can see within that physical space that traditionally has lived as a static image on a PDF, in some cases a website, is digitized and made actionable in the Saltmine Design Cloud. And so once we've gone through that implementation process and we've digitized, again, that data that typically lives in a PDF, that information is then made actionable through the modules that you kind of see on that top purple band. We have a strategy module that is intended to drive intelligent programs, 100% in alignment with an organization's guidelines. That strategy module connects directly into our design module. And we configure that design module in a couple of different ways. So we have some customers who, at the early phases of a project, don't care if it's let's say a working carpet or a Shaw carpet or a Herman Miller chair or a steel case chair. They simply want to be able to lay out their spaces in a visual 2D and 3D manner to understand, are they signing an effective lease? So that's more of our capacity study, implementation or configuration. We have other customers who choose to take it more to what I would call 70%, and that's concept design. It's their materiality, it's their finishes, it's their Herman Miller chair with that SKU number, that warranty information, that costing information, their materiality, their seafoam green wall paint. So they're, again, taking it up to concept design. That includes high definition photorealistic renders, quantity takeoffs, and bill of materials. We have a third module called finishing, which is really intended to help customers quickly make those last decisions of a project. So does a seafoam green wall look better? I'll go back to that example, or a royal blue wall. I want to see 2 or 3 different floor choices for my main corridor. So I can quickly toggle between alternates and make those finishing design decisions as part of that module. And then throughout the entire platform, there's a layer of analytics and reporting. So this is more than just a pretty visualization platform. There's a lot of data and reports available kind of behind the scenes. And then through a lot of the communication features, truly the ability to collaborate in a contextual manner. So very similar to how Slack or like a Google Docs work. I could log in, Ted, and say, Ted, I really don't like what you've done with the placement of this particular phone booth. I could pen on that phone booth, leave a comment. You're going to get an instant email notification. The next time you log into Saltmine, it's going to take you right back to that particular context of the design file. So all of that communicating that typically happened offline is now happening in the cloud. All right, so I apologize because I really hate busy slides, and I weighed whether or not I should include all of this in one particular slide, but given we have 12 minutes now, I tried to cram in as much as possible. I'm going to start with that graphic on the bottom that talks about the lease transactions, design, build, and manage sides of the business. I will say there's a typo in there, so My apologies. Under lease transactions, that shouldn't say occupancy, it should say market analysis. But there are a lot of platforms out in the CRE or PropTech ecosystem today. So I'm certainly not making any claims that Saltmine is the first. There's tools like CoStar from a lease transaction or market analysis perspective. There's a lot of new technologies entering the build space. And in the managed world, which was the world I lived in for a long time, there's a variety of different applications or platforms. A little shout out to Jamie Bonsamino from the FM Systems team. There's FM Systems, there's Archivist, there's Pririga, a lot of legacy platforms once the walls have gone up and people have moved into the space. Ted, if you look at the design side of our business, that is still very, very point solution driven. So again, we talked about strategy typically living as a PDF. Occasionally you'll go out and maybe pay a design firm a couple $100,000 and they'll throw that PDF into a website. It's still very static information. I would say 99% of the customers that I talk to program in Excel. Excel isn't connected to that PDF. Excel is connected to how they test fit, which is typically done in CAD or some other softwares that have been out for a while. Really think about that design process. And so Saltmine's mission is to be that single source of truth to really connect the codified design process in a cloud environment. All that information is very shareable and accessible via all the stakeholders of a project. So if you move your eyes to the right side graph, really focused on opening up an occupier's ecosystem. And so if I'm ABC or if I'm Acme Tech in this example, and I'm working with a myriad of different vendors, whether it's art dealers, it's furniture vendors, it's brokers, it's large service providers, cost and quantity surveyors, anyone who may touch a project, including internal stakeholders, can all have a license to Saltmine. We're a little bit different than a lot of the other real estate techs I've worked with in that we don't charge on license count. We ask customers to open their design cloud up to anyone who would touch a project. And then the admin can read what those individuals can do and what permissions and projects they can touch. Most people probably don't want the broker moving architectural elements within a model. No offense to my brokers, but they do want them to be able to log in, see strategy, and maybe leave some comments and annotate. So there's flexibility in terms of user permissions. So how does this whole thing work? We're about halfway through, guys. Again, we take that information that typically sits in a workplace guidelines or workplace standards. Standards can be kind of an ugly word these days. We're hearing guidelines more and more. We take that information that sits in an Excel calculator. We take historical projects, performance requirements, all that information that makes up your workplace, and we digitize that information. So as it kind of moves to the right, I'm showing what it looks like in Saltmine. And so instead of a focus room in this example, living as an image with some dimensions and a description as part of that PDF, all of that information gets digitized, and then that's baked into the block or the products directly with the Saltmine platform. The same thing happens for all of your ratios. What are the ratios for conference rooms to headcount for the engineering department in EMEA? Well, that information gets baked into the back-end algorithm of Saltmine and is used to develop those intelligence programs as part of our strategy module. So why you should care about all of this? I mean, it's great that we're digitizing things. It's great that everything is in 3D, that it's accessible, that it's shareable. But again, why does someone care about this? Why would an occupier care about this? Well, it's efficient internal processes. We have seen about an 80% reduction in time to program through our 50 plus customers. Again, almost every occupier I talk to programs in Excel. They have a conversation with the business. A requirement changes, it breaks their Excel model. That back and forth, very iterative process typically takes weeks to finalize on a program. We have seen a 50 to 75% reduction in test fit time. And this is not, you can't compare apples to apples between a traditional 2D test fit and what you get out of Saltmine, which is, again, cloud-based, it's 3D enabled with a variety of different data points. And we've done some head-to-head comparisons of some of the legacy tools versus Saltmine. So significant efficiency gains or time savings. We talked about the collaboration within an occupier's ecosystem. We've seen an increase in project C scores. And so as customers evaluate their internal real estate teams and how they've done in building out their spaces, because they can now collaborate and visualize and understand cost implications earlier in a project, we've seen those CSAT scores go up. And then certainly with all that I just mentioned, the time to approval has gone significantly down. If you're a non-designer or a non-architect, it's really hard to visualize in 2D. You may understand generally what the layout's gonna look like, but you don't understand how the space is gonna feel and perform. And so we have a significant reduction in that approval time. And then the third bucket is cost reduction and better budgeting, which ultimately is making better workplace decisions. So a marked improvement in terms of alignment to guidelines. I keep going back to that guidelines point because, again, you might have a PDF, or you might have a static website, but how often are your different design firms or your different PMs that you're working with around the globe actually those guidelines and adhering to those? Reduce time to submit budget. Everything that's done within Saltmine as I'm building out these really collaborative 3D visually immersive environments instantly provides me with quantity takeoffs and my specific costing. So I'm getting a bill of materials for all of my hard cost very, very early on in the project. And again, as we visualized and understood the design intent, we're seeing a reduction in those day 2 change orders. All right, how much time do I have left here, Ted?
We got a couple minutes, but I really think we wanted to show this video. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing.
So I couldn't show everything within Saltmine, so I decided just to focus in on the design module. So that's what you're seeing here. Again, I have the ability, and this is all cloud-based, to instantly toggle through 2D views, 3D views, 3D or that bird's eye panoramic, to turn off specific layers. And this is a live design environment, so I can go in and I can make any changes on the fly. As you saw, I just moved that chair around. I could knock down walls, I could change floor finishes, and then put a user directly in a dynamically, visually immersive environment where I could walk them through. I can set some predefined camera angles, so I could be hands-off keyboard and up doing a presentation around what we're going to do with the space, while the stakeholders are walking through and understanding the design intent. I also have the ability, which I don't think I showed in this video, to drag and drop pens and delete comments. So I could leave comments on rooms, I could leave comments on objects, on finishes, and I could say, hey, Simon Davis, what do you think about this particular task chair or this particular floor finish? Simon could say, you're a terrible designer, let's change this to a different finish color. I think I did show it here. And all of that, again, communication is happening directly in the cloud. Everything that's done here, Ted, is also exportable directly out to AutoCAD and Revit. We realize that we are not the system that an organization is going to generate construction documentation from, but we can take up to 70%. Everything exports out to those traditional construction documentation platforms, and the architect can carry the project forward. I think that's all oh, no, there's one more. They were showing the bill of materials. That was the bill of materials and the quantity takeoffs that come right from the design. But I think generally that's what I wanted to share today, Ted.
That's great. Really appreciate you being with us. That was excellent. I especially like the fly-through and that it's all cloud-based is amazing. So Saltmine, thanks so much for sponsoring Nick. Thanks so much for sharing the content. And up next, very timely, a panel session on technology supporting programming design. Go back to your Join page and jump in. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.